The morning sun had just begun to rise above the rooftops of Lahore, painting the sky with strokes of soft orange and gold. The streets were waking up, shopkeepers were lifting their shutters, children were running to school with lunchboxes swinging in their hands, and buses honked impatiently in the distance. Amid all this familiar chaos, a young woman walked quietly down the street, her eyes full of purpose and calm determination. Her name was Amina. Amina was a second-year medical student at the city university. Every morning, she took the same route, across the small bridge near the canal, past the old bookstore, and through the narrow alley that opened to the main road. Her books were tucked tightly against her chest, and her bag, though worn and heavy, carried not just notes and stethoscope models, but dreams. Dreams of becoming a doctor who could make a difference, a voice for those who had none. That day began like any other. She smiled at the elderly fruit seller who always greeted her with a warm, Assalamu alaikum, Betty. She waved at her friend Sana, who was rushing toward the bus stop, almost tripping over her own feet. Life felt ordinary, safe, predictable. But sometimes, destiny hides its biggest twists inside the quietest mornings. As Amina crossed the main road, she noticed something unusual. The air felt heavier than usual. There was a faint smell of burning rubber in the distance, just enough to wrinkle her nose, but not enough to alarm her. She looked around, trying to see where it came from, but the street ahead looked normal. A group of schoolboys were laughing near a tea stall, an old man was reading a newspaper, a few rickshaws were lined up, waiting for passengers. She adjusted her dupatta and kept walking. The hum of the city filled her ears, the clatter of cups, the rumble of engines, the chatter of voices. But then, suddenly, that harmony broke. At first, it was a distant sound, faint but sharp. A siren, then another, and another. They were growing louder, rushing closer, slicing through the calm air like an alarm from the heavens. Amina stopped walking. She turned around, her eyes searching for the source of the noise. Within seconds, people began to murmur. A man shouted from the corner, pointing toward the next street. A thick column of black smoke was rising, twisting and curling into the blue sky. The smell of burning fuel grew stronger now, stinging her throat. Something terrible had happened nearby. Her heartbeat quickened. She could hear it thumping in her chest, louder than the chaos that was beginning to unfold. People were running now, some toward the smoke, others away from it. A shopkeeper yelled for someone to call the fire department. A woman screamed, holding her child tightly. Amina felt her legs freeze. Her mind raced. Should she run too? Should she hide? But curiosity and concern pulled her forward. She was a student of medicine. Helping others wasn't just her dream, it was her instinct. She took a deep breath and began to walk faster, her eyes locked on the growing cloud of smoke ahead. When she turned the corner, the scene before her made her heart drop. A public bus had crashed into a roadside barrier. Flames were bursting from its side, glass shattered across the pavement. People were screaming, some trapped inside, some lying injured near the road. A motorcycle lay on its side, twisted and burning. Amina's body trembled. She wanted to look away, to turn back and pretend she hadn't seen it. The flames danced wildly, painting the street in shades of orange and red. Thick black smoke coiled into the sky, stinging Amina's eyes and throat. She coughed but kept running. Every breath felt heavier, but she didn't stop. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from urgency. Someone was still inside that bus, crying for help. She reached the side of the vehicle and could feel the heat biting into her skin. The metal was hot enough to burn through her sleeves. She backed away, scanned the ground, and spotted a large rock lying near the curb. Without thinking, she grabbed it, lifted it with both hands, and slammed it against one of the shattered windows. The glass splintered, and shards rained down like tiny crystals. From inside, she heard a weak voice, an elderly man gasping, "Please, someone help my wife." Amina's pulse pounded in her ears. She covered her mouth with her dupatta and crawled halfway into the bus through the broken window. The air inside was thick with smoke, making it almost impossible to breathe. The heat was suffocating. Seats were overturned, luggage scattered, and the acrid smell of burning fuel filled her nostrils. She spotted the old couple trapped between two seats, the woman's leg pinned under a metal bar. The flames were crawling closer. Amina shouted, "I'm here. Hold on." She tried lifting the bar, but it wouldn't budge. Her hands slipped, her arms trembled. Then, through the smoke, she saw two young men standing outside, watching in shock. "Help me," she yelled again. "I can't do it alone." This time, they ran toward her. Together, the three of them heaved the metal upward just enough for the woman to pull her leg free. The couple coughed and stumbled out, Amina supporting the woman's arm as they escaped through the window. But she wasn't done yet. She could still hear faint cries, a child's voice. Somewhere in the back of the bus. Her lungs screamed for air, but her heart refused to stop. She turned back, crawling through the aisle. Flames were licking the ceiling now, sparks falling dangerously close. Her sleeve caught a spark, and for a moment, she panicked, quickly slapping it out before it spread. Then she saw him, a little boy, no more than 6, wedged between two seats, tears streaking his soot-covered face. "Don't move," she shouted. "I'm coming." She crawled closer, coughing, her vision blurring from the smoke. Her hands shook as she reached out and pulled at the seat frame, freeing his tiny leg. The boy whimpered in pain. You're okay," she whispered, voice hoarse. She lifted him into her arms, his head resting against her shoulder. When she turned around, flames blocked her way back. Panic surged through her chest. The main aisle was burning, she couldn't go the same way she came. She looked around desperately. One window at the back was cracked but not broken. "Hold on tight," she told the boy. Then she kicked the window with all her strength, once, twice, until it shattered open. The sudden rush of fresh air hit her face. Relief washed through her, but there was no time to breathe. She climbed out, clutching the boy close, and jumped down onto the pavement. Her knees hit the ground hard, but she didn't let go of him. People nearby rushed forward now, taking the child from her trembling arms. The boy's mother, covered in dust and tears, screamed his name and ran to him. The moment she saw her son alive, she fell to her knees, sobbing. Amina just stared, chest heaving, tears streaming down her soot-streaked face. She couldn't believe it, they were alive. Then she felt someone grab her arm. A firefighter, in full gear, had arrived with his team. "Miss, you need to move back. The fuel tank could explode," he shouted. She nodded weakly and stumbled backward, her head spinning. Paramedics swarmed the scene. The sound of sirens filled the air, louder now, closer. Someone handed her a bottle of water, and she took a shaky sip. Her hands were blackened with soot, her scarf half burnt, but she barely noticed. Across the road, people were pointing at her, whispering, recording with their phones. A news van had already arrived. Cameras zoomed in on the girl who had run into the fire when others had run away. She didn't see herself as a hero, she was just doing what felt right. But to everyone else, she looked like a symbol of courage. Minutes later, as the firefighters extinguished the last of the flames, one of the officers approached her. "You saved lives today," he said softly. "What's your name, miss?" Amina looked at him, still dazed, her voice barely a whisper. Amina Khalid." The officer nodded, repeating it over the radio to the emergency coordination team. In the distance, a helicopter appeared, dark, sleek, and powerful, descending slowly through the haze of smoke. The Black Hawk's rescue unit had arrived to secure the area. Amina watched as the helicopter touched down. Her hair blew wildly in the gust of wind from its blades. One of the officers stepped out, scanning the scene. When he saw her standing there, covered in soot yet steady on her feet, he approached and saluted her silently, a small gesture, but one that spoke louder than any words. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment, caught on camera and shared across the country, would soon make her name echo everywhere. The girl who walked to class with books in her hands had now walked into fire with courage in her heart. And the world had just begun to notice. The sound of helicopter blades thundered across the smoky sky as the Black Hawk's rescue unit descended. Their arrival cut through the chaos, a wave of order in a sea of confusion. The firefighters moved back, police cordoned off the area, and paramedics rushed to treat the injured. Amina stood near the edge of the crowd, her body trembling from exhaustion. Her scarf was torn, her hands scraped and blackened. Her breathing was uneven, every inhale still heavy with smoke. She felt lightheaded, as if the world around her was spinning. Yet she stayed, watching, waiting, making sure every last person was safe. A Black Hawks officer approached her, tall, uniform spotless, his face partly hidden behind dark glasses. He had seen countless emergencies, but something about this young woman struck him. She wasn't trained, she wasn't equipped, but she had done what even trained men sometimes hesitated to do. "You were inside that bus?" he asked, voice steady but filled with quiet respect. Amina nodded weakly. "There were people trapped, I just couldn't walk away." The officer looked at her for a moment, then spoke into his radio. "Greater than, command, we've got a civilian rescuer here. Repeat, civilian, female, mid-20s, multiple rescues confirmed. Name." Amina hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amina Khalid." Her name was repeated through the radio, carried into the helicopter, then transmitted to the command center. Within minutes, the name, Amina Khalid, echoed through the communications of the entire rescue network. The officer gave her a reassuring smile. "You did something incredible today, Amina. You saved lives before we even got here." She lowered her gaze, shaking her head. "I just did what anyone should have done." But not everyone had. Behind her, news reporters were gathering, cameras rolling. The crowd buzzed with excitement, pointing, whispering, taking photos. The image of a soot-covered girl standing amid fire trucks and helicopters looked like something out of a movie. Within hours, it would flood television screens and social media feeds. The helicopter's pilot leaned out, giving a thumbs up as the medics began to load the injured onboard. Before lifting off, the Black Hawks officer raised his hand toward Amina and gave her a salute, firm, respectful, and full of admiration. And just like that, the sound of the blades rose again, the helicopter slowly lifting off, carrying the survivors into the golden afternoon sky. Amina stood silently, hair whipping around her face, watching the machine disappear into the distance. For a brief moment, she felt everything, fear, relief, disbelief, and pride, all mixing into one overwhelming wave of emotion. Then her knees gave out. A medic rushed to her side and helped her sit down. "You need oxygen," he said quickly, wrapping a mask around her face. The cool air hit her lungs, easing the burning inside her chest. Around her, the chaos was fading, replaced by the rhythmic hum of recovery, people being treated, hoses cooling down the bus, police taking statements. A reporter crouched beside her, microphone in hand. "Miss, you just saved several people before the rescue team arrived. Can we know your name?" Amina blinked, tired but calm. "Amina, just Amina." The footage aired that evening on every major news channel. The headline read,